me go ahead and start that. All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the 5 Keys to End Explosive Episodes. My name is Sandy Lerman, and I will be sharing with you some information tonight about explosive episodes. So some of you in the chat were telling me that you are parents or that you are teachers or that you're mentors. And you're here because you either have a child in your home or you are a teaching child or you're working with children who have explosive episodes. So this is primarily for those of you who know for sure that your child has some kind of trauma, usually developmental trauma. Often that's accompanied by anxiety, and many of our children have experienced adverse childhood experiences, which is also known as ACEs. So we're going to talk about how that, we'll just touch on how that affects our children and their behaviors and the kind of approach that we're going to use to serve them. All right, so if you will just type in the chat to let me know for sure that you can hear me okay. Somebody say, yes, I can hear you. Just want to make sure that everybody's able to hear and that there's everybody's able to see what we're doing. All right, excellent. Great. All right, so let's talk about what explosive episodes usually look like, because you might be thinking about the behaviors that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and let me know if this is what anything, if this is similar to what you're seeing. So children with developmental trauma, adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, those with anxiety often do some of these following things. Sometimes they have extreme irritability and anger that's out of proportion to the problem. How many of you have had that experience, right? Sometimes they have physical aggression and violence towards the caregiver or their siblings or their classmates. Sometimes they will have shutdowns or meltdowns whenever they're frustrated. And often we see that they have unsafe behaviors that will escalate whenever the caregiver tries to stop them. Okay, is anybody experiencing that with the children that you work with? The problem that we come across is that a lot of times, the traditional behavior modification, behavior interventions do not work with these children. Caregivers are told, just be firm, just, set limits, be firm, don't let them get their way, don't let them have tantrums. If you let them have tantrums, they're going to manipulate you into giving them whatever they want, right? This is what I heard parenting my child and also as a teacher for many years. And so parents listen to this advice and they try this, and then they just find that these kids are pushing back and pushing back to the point that nothing is really working, right? So a lot of times teachers will hear or parents will hear that they should be giving rewards for good behavior, incentives for good behavior, or a punishment, or what we also call a consequence, which is just a softer word for the term punishment. But giving out punishments or consequences for bad behavior, and somehow this is going to help the child feel more motivation to behave, right? How many of you have had that experience? Some of the experts out there will tell you that the goal is to get the child to comply with adult authority, right? Most of the behavior modification programs that are out there, they really focus on obedience and respect, regardless of, as long as there's an adult in the room, you have to respect the adult, even if maybe they don't deserve respect, but they're the adults, so we respect them. It's all about submission to adult authority rather than any kind of connection, any kind of heart-to-heart connection with the child. And even some of you who are familiar with connected parenting, which is a more heart-based type of parenting, more relationship-based parenting that focuses on trust. Some of those systems that are really popular, they have what they call correcting principles. And what I have found, and the parents and the teachers that I serve have found, is that when those correcting principles are applied to a child, a lot of times the kids just can't accept that correction, and they're just going to even escalate the behavior to be even more explosive, okay? So it's all about trying to fix their behavior, fix the problem as a parent, as the adult, kind of imposing your authority on them, rather than really looking beneath the surface to see what's going on with the child. we want to remember that all behavior is communication, right? So it's important for us to keep that in mind when we're working with kids. So here's what happens when you use those traditional systems with explosive children. You get short-term compliance sometimes. So, you know, I use this in my classroom for many, many, many years. I had very traditional rewards and consequences in my classroom as a classroom teacher. And it was great. It kept the kids working, it kept them in their seats. You know, they were compliant for a short term. But then there were just a few kids who, now looking back, I know they had developmental trauma. And those kids, if they didn't get a reward or if they got a consequence, it immediately backfired, right? The system worked great for just a little while until they started feeling that emotional dysregulation around either not getting the reward every time or getting a consequence. And then you end up in this spiraling out of control, you know, the kids going back into explosive behaviors. You've got tug of war between the parent and the child, or the teacher and the child. And there's this constant battle of the wills, right? Often this can escalate into physical battles, which is really kind of scary sometimes. The child ends up with a lot of diagnoses. You know, take them to the therapist, take them to the psychiatrist, to the doctor. They get a bunch of labels, which, you know, can be helpful in some situations. Like, they can be helpful to get medications or to get services. But the problem is that having the labels doesn't solve the underlying problem of the explosiveness, right? So the child ends up, you know, taking lots of medications. Sometimes the medications help, sometimes they make things worse. So parents will come to me very frustrated about this because they feel like they're trying everything and it's not working. So we go into chaos and we go into crisis, right? We have just this chaotic kinds of behavior going on. Behavior cycles out, the aggression becomes more and more dangerous. Parents are at a loss because everything the therapists are telling them, everything the schools and the doctors, teachers are telling them to do isn't working. And it's because those people at school and the doctors, they've never had a child like this in their home. So they just think, oh, just set firm limits and all will be fine. They don't understand, it's just getting worse. So eventually a lot of these children end up being taken to the hospital for inpatient treatment or maybe even longer residential care. They end up in RTCs long-term. And then, you know, this may help for a little while, but then when the child returns home, they still have to learn how to navigate relationships and figure out how to be in a family, right? And how to have these kinds of have the kind of communication that's going to keep things safe. So today's goal, we're going to talk about, now that we've looked at the problem, you know, what is going on with these explosive kids? We're going to talk about what are the 5 keys to ending those explosive episodes so that you can stop them safely, prevent them effectively, and then over time, eventually eliminate them completely. I hope that sounds good to you. You can say, tell me in the chat if that sounds like something that you would like to learn today. I'm going to give you as much as I can today. We'll see how much I can get through, but I'm going to try to give you tons of content. So first, let me tell you a little about my story. This is my son, Hero. Hero was adopted when he was 10 years old from Guatemala. It was a 4-year adoption process. It took us a really long time to complete the adoption process. He was the only deaf child at his orphanage. So because of that, you know, he went through a lot of trauma. He didn't really have a language to express his needs. He was misunderstood. He had lots of explosive episodes, and people didn't really know exactly how to handle some of the things that he was doing. So he experienced additional trauma on top of the trauma of losing his first family, being in an orphanage, all of those things. So the adoption process took us 4 years, and after his adoption, his behaviors were very, very aggressive, very explosive, and we were in a lot of danger because he just really became, I tell people it's kind of like, you know, you've seen the Helen Keller movies, right? And she had no way to communicate her needs, so she was having massive meltdowns and explosive episodes. Not that she was a bad kid, she just didn't know how to get her needs met effectively, right? So that's what was going on with Hero. When he came home, he really didn't have a fully developed language. So on top of having trauma and all of that going on, he also had language delay, and that made it even more frustrating for him. So I tried everything to help him with these explosive episodes, and nothing was really working effectively long term. Like, it would work for a couple of days until he ended up with a consequence or ended up not getting a reward, or when he didn't feel like he could trust me for whatever reason, um, things just would escalate. And, I tried doing connect, then correct. That's what I was reading, all these books about trauma. That's what they told me to do. And what it was more like, it was like correct and then duck, because something's going to come at my head, right? Like, he's going to have an explosive episode. We're not going to be able to handle this episode. So it got really, really dangerous. And I ended up having to call 911 a few times because my life was really in danger. I didn't think he would do anything on purpose to hurt me, but because he was so out of control and he was so physical, I thought he might accidentally hurt me or hurt himself. He was pushing me and shoving me and trying to slam doors and break things, and it just got really out of hand. And at the very last minute, when I thought, oh, this could become really dangerous, I'd be like, I gotta call somebody for help. So I tried to use neighbors and friends, and we had a really good support system there for a while, but I just didn't want to exhaust people with that. So I ended up calling police a few times. Looking back, I'm not sure that was the best thing, but I really didn't know what else to do. So he ended up in the hospital many times, but there were a total of 12 hospitalizations in those first few years. And he would be in an inpatient psychiatric facility for 3 to 8 days, usually each time. Medications that they prescribed for him, usually the anxiety meds and some of the antipsychotic meds, they caused increased irritability and increased mood problems. They didn't really help. So, we tried all the things. We really did, and it wasn't working. But I wasn't willing to give up on this kid. I worked 4 years to get him home. I faced, so many challenges just going through the bureaucracy of trying to get the adoption completed. And so I started to look for solutions, right? And I love this quote. It's, a worried mother does better research than the FBI. I was a worried mother. I knew that my son needed something different. I was trying some things, but they weren't working. So I really started investigating what's going to work for him. Let me look at more than just, I'm going to look beyond just these few books that I have that people have recommended about trauma, and children and adverse childhood experiences, and really expand my research into other fields of trauma, looking at, for example, combat veterans when they return with PTSD, looking at literature about positive psychology and how people develop their self-concept, looking at literature about developmental stages just in general and how kids grow through each developmental stage. So I looked at a lot of different things and started really coming to the conclusion that I needed to start from scratch and really start with the basics and just get us out of that feeling of tug of war that we're always going at each other. We needed to stop the adversarial sort of approach. It needed to not be about him against me or me against him. It needed to be both of us against the trauma, both of us working together to come up with solutions, both of us communicating in deep love and compassion to figure out what was going to work. So I came across some other books. I came across the work of Ross Greene, who I highly recommend his books and his approach. I came across the work of Mona Delahook, who I love, Laura Markham, and some others who I just felt like their approaches were so much more about really giving the child more agency, giving the child more input, giving them a voice into how to solve the problem together as a family, which I really liked. So I used all of those things. I started picking and choosing all these different ideas, and I created a new approach to how I was going to work with my son and really try to help heal his trauma. So I decided to, use all these different sources, and I created what I now call the HeartStrong model. HeartStrong is actually an acronym, and I'll go through it quickly for you, but HEART stands for honesty, empathy, acceptance, respect, and trust. Strong is 2 elements that are essential. STR is strengths-based training for resilience, and ONG is giving the child optimistic narratives of growth. So it's a growth-focused, strengths-based, relationship-driven, trauma-sensitive, trauma-responsive approach to helping children heal and go up what I call the spiraling stages of growth. It creates growth and healing. It's a growth and healing process. Because what I was finding in all these other approaches was that they would tell you, connect and then correct, and, make sure you're connecting with the child, but there was no emphasis on how to get them up to the next level of their growth and healing. And that's what I wanted to see. So that's what I decided to focus on. So it all has to do with radical acceptance of exactly where they are on those spiraling stages, which is really tough for some parents because they want to see perfection right now. But when the child is in that lower stage of growth, they're not going to be perfect right now. And that's true for us as adults too. It's all about the progress, not about perfection, right? And relationship is key. So I started sharing this approach with other people. I started blogging about it, talking to other parents informally. Then I started doing some parent coaching because what I was doing was really working for my son, and we started seeing a reduction in the amount of explosive episodes he was having. He started to trust me more. We were developing a deeper connection. We had fewer hospitalizations. Things were going the right direction. So I realized that this information would also be valuable for teachers. I had been a classroom teacher for many years as well. And so then I eventually created a Train the Trainer program, which if any of you would like information about, if you're sort of more advanced and you already know some of this and you want to help other parents and other teachers, I also do a certification program for those who want to be certified in Heartstrong methods to support teachers and parents. So we have expanded the mission of Heartstrong International to, we're a division of Wing Builder, and we are a global teaching and coaching company. I have parent coaches and educational trainers in New Zealand, Canada, US, and we're expanding to some other countries as well. We provide parent coaching and teacher training, and we also train parent coaches and teacher trainers. So I used my background as an educator, right? I also work in the mental health field. So I've been part of an agency for a few years here in Indiana, and I work with other mental health therapists, and I taught at a university program for trauma-informed teaching. And then we created these two different programs for Heartstrong International. So we have the Heartstrong Academy. Some of you might want to go on to that. And then we also have our professional certification programs. So here's what we're going to talk about, the 5 steps in just a minute. This is all just background so you know kind of where they fit in, okay? So this is the Heartstrong model. This is the heart of it, I guess. This is the foundation that we use, the scaffolding our children through these spiraling stages. We start down here in stage 1, which is regulation. Stage 2 is relationship. Stage 3, reciprocity. And stage 4 is resilience. And down here in regulation, this is where we are. If your child or your student is having lots and lots of explosive episodes, they're in that stage where they're in crisis to compassion, chaos to calm. Crisis to compassion, chaos to calm. What's happening is you're going through a crisis, and then you cycle into compassion, and the child calms down. And then you go into crisis, and you go back to your compassion. You come back to your heart of compassion for the child. Once you have compassion for what's going on with the child, you're still in that sort of chaos to calm. Your child's still having these explosive episodes, and it has to do with the neurology, the brain, the body, all of those things working together, okay? So explosive episodes are really just another way of saying the child is dysregulated. The child's body is dysregulated, their brain is dysregulated, their emotions are dysregulated. They can't access what we call the prefrontal cortex in the brain because they're down here in the part of the brain that's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. They're in their survival brain, and all they can think of is, I must gain control, I must be in charge, right? And so they become almost like, sometimes they look like wild animals the way they're acting, because they're just so terrified. And this is what I had to learn about my son. I thought he was being defiant, but he really wasn't being defiant. He was terrified. He was terrified, and he was acting defiant because he didn't know what else to do to gain that control, to make himself feel safe and to feel like he was secure. So in stage 1 of the Heartstrong model, We have to go from crisis to compassion, that's step 1, and go from chaos to calm, that's step 2. Okay? So the only way for regulation to happen, and that's how to calm those explosive episodes, compassion and calm have to happen both in the adult and in the child, right? We have to be calm and the child has to be calm. If we're not calm, the child can't be calm. And then everybody's question is always, okay, that sounds really great, but how does the adult stay calm when the child is like throwing a plate across the room, or, you know, pounding their fist against the wall, or breaking their brother's favorite toy, or slapping the parent, or pulling the parent's hair, kicking, screaming, scratching, self-harm as they get older, self-harm, suicidality, all of those things. These are all part of that dysregulated state. And it's essential that the parents stay calm, because it's better for us to pull them into our calm than for them to pull us into their dysregulation. But that's their goal. They want to pull us into that. It's not because they're bad kids, but it's because they're scared and they want to share that feeling because they don't know how to communicate it with us. Okay. So I'm going to quickly go through these 5 things that you need to do to stop these explosive meltdowns. We're only going to have the rest of this training. We're going to go about 50 to 60 minutes. There will be a recording available as well. At the end of the presentation, I promise, since we aren't going to be able to go over everything, I just have limited time, I promise I will give you more information about how to get more of this, how to get more specific to your child, really do a deep dive and get more information about all of these. Okay, because we're really doing a fast whirlwind tour of a lot of the tools and a lot of the strategies that I use in my program. So the first thing we need to do is tame the trauma dragon. Okay, you might say, well, what's the trauma dragon? The trauma dragon is not your child. Okay, you're not taming your child. You're taming the trauma that's in their brain and their heart and their body that's creating the dysregulation. We got to tame that, got to get that under control so that we can live with it. It's still going to be there. We're still going to have this dragon in our house. But if we tame the trauma dragon, it will just, you know, we may have some fiery flames coming out once in a while. But if it's tame and it trusts us, then we're going to have it under control, so it's not controlling our lives, okay? So how do we tame the trauma dragon? Well, we have to accept that these explosive episodes are going to happen. We just have to have very radical acceptance that, you know, this is part of trauma. This is what happens. This is what's going to happen. Doesn't mean forever, and it doesn't mean they're going to be as bad as they are right now. That's the key. That goes back to the, I lost it. Back to the spiraling stages of growth. Remember, we start off on those lower stages and then we're going to go higher. We're going to go up to relationship. We're going to go up to reciprocity. We're going to have, the child's going to be calm. They're going to be collaborating. They're going to be feeling courageous, having connection. All those things are going to happen, but not until we calm that trauma dragon first. But we're going to get there. That's the thing. I always tell parents, they're not there yet. But you have to accept them right where they are, so that we can heal that little piece of that little step, and then we can move on to the next thing, right? So we're going to prepare them. We're going to prepare for those explosive episodes by having a really solid safety plan and really solid adult self-care, okay? Because when they happen, then you can focus on taming the trauma dragon. And the only objective at this stage of growth, at stage 1, is just for you to stay calm and compassionate, and to help the child get to a state of calm and to feel that compassion deeply and to not feel so out of control, right? So that is the objective. You want them to stay calm, and you want to keep yourself calm and keep the child calm. So key 1 is to tame the trauma dragon is not getting the child to comply with the rules. You're not talking about the rules. You're not talking about what it is they did wrong. You're not having a discussion about coping skills. Please don't make them do coping skills. That's what one of our coaches tried to do for me early on. They can't do that. They have no access to that part of the brain. You just be calm and be present with them, okay? It's working with the child as a team to tame the fear and the chaos inside their brain and their body, as well as your own. So a lot of people say, but. Okay, that sounds great. But what about, how are they ever going to learn to have a job? How are they ever going to learn to follow the rules if they have rules at school? How are they ever going to learn to, not hit their brother? They will learn those things. They're going to learn all those things when they get to that stage of growth. But right now, you've got to be able to calm that tame that trauma dragon, so that you can teach those lessons and get to that stage of growth. Okay, you just got to do it first. It's got to happen first, but it will come. I promise you. Okay. All right. So the next key. So key 1 was tame the trauma dragon. Just be calm until your child's calm. And there's a whole bunch of ways to do that I'm not going to be able to go into tonight. But I can do that for you if you'd like more on this. I can give you more information about that. Okay, so then key 2 is implement the 4 essentials for growth and healing. So now that we've got the trauma dragon calmed down, we want to prevent additional explosions from happening, right? So this is just, they're going to happen, you prepare for them to happen, and you stay calm when they happen. That's step 1, okay? Step 2 is, now that we know that they're happening, we're staying calm while they're happening. Now we want to prevent them so that we don't have them as often. And then eventually you reduce and reduce and reduce until they go away completely, which they do. Just about all the parents that I work with have had a massive reduction in the meltdowns, or they've been eliminated completely. And for sure, my son doesn't have these anymore at all. He's fantastic. And he's been with me now 10 years. I adopted him when he's 10, and he's going to be 20. Can't believe it, in December. Time flies, right? They say the days are long, but the years are short. So those of you who have little ones, don't blink, because they grow fast. So growth, this is what we want. We want growth and healing. So how do we do that? So there are 4 things, 4 essentials. You have to have all 4 of these. It's like the 4 legs of a table. If you take one of these legs off, the table falls over, right? So the 4 essentials, and there are actually more that I'm not going to go into tonight, but these are the 4 most important ones. A safety plan. And I'm not just saying, okay, the safety plan is we're going to call the counselor, or the safety plan is we're going to go to the hospital. Those are kind of like the last step, but there's all of these other things that you can do to make your home safe, to make your classroom safe, to make the child feel safe, to make yourself feel safe. You need to be safe. You can't be in danger. You can't have the child hitting you and hurting you. So we have to create a really detailed safety plan that includes everything in the environment, everything about the way you're handling things, escape routes if you need them, people to call if you need support. All those things need to be in place. Because once you have a good safety plan, then you can relax a little bit and say, I know what the plan is. I don't have to panic at the last minute. What am I going to do if my child, breaks something? What am I going to do? You've already thought that through. Okay, you have a plan. Self-care, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but it's not just getting a pedicure or going to the spa. Like, self-care has to be a daily practice and has to be comprehensive. Okay, strategies are the things we're talking about today, and I have tons of strategies that you can use that we can go into more detail about if you'd like this. And then support. You need a support team. You need people around you that understand and that have your back. Okay, so so here they are again. So you're going to create this detailed plan for everybody, not just the child. You're going to make sure the adult, so self-care is not just about taking care of yourself. It's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's all those things, but it's also self-compassion. And this is what I see parents and teachers, but mostly moms. Moms are the ones that are the worst at this. I'm a mom, so I can say that I have this problem. I tend to beat myself up if I'm not doing everything that I'm supposed to do the right way. So I yell at my child once in a while, like, oh, I messed up. That wasn't compassionate. Well, of course not, because I'm under a tremendous amount of stress. And of course I'm going to lose it every once in a while. And of course I'm a human being, and that's okay. I can reconnect. I can repair that with my child. So being compassionate and having that love for yourself and that positive self-regard for yourself, and just filling up your own love tank in ways that don't necessarily involve your child being responsive to you, because they aren't always very lovey-dovey. They're not very warm and fuzzy for a long time if they're going through these kinds of behaviors. So you've got to get your needs met. And I'm a solo parent. I'm not co-parenting with a partner or with a spouse. Some of you have partners and spouses, and some of them are super supportive and some of them aren't. So if your spouse is not supportive, you need somebody else around you that's going to give you that kind of support and that kind of input and that kind of love. But if they're not, then you need to give it to yourself. You need to do loving things to yourself. And that takes some practice. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Strategies. So strategies are ideas that work, like communication skills, the way you talk to your child. There's a certain way to do it that's not going to set them off. I call it giving them invitations instead of giving them demands, right? Inviting them to participate in cleaning up the kitchen, inviting them to help you with things, not demanding and forcing, because that feels controlling and it causes the amygdala to fire, danger, danger, and then they get scared, they go into fight, flight, or freeze, and they explode. It's not intentional. They really are not trying to push your buttons. They really are just scared, okay? And then a support team, whether it's professionals you work with, friends, family members, people who can surround your family in a variety of ways to help you with whatever your needs are, okay? So that's key too, have those 4 essentials in place. This is all building, this is all like putting together the masterpiece here that's gonna create this foundation for you to end these explosive episodes, okay? So key 3 is to measure what I call the lift factors that give you the lift and get you off and running to reducing those meltdowns, reducing those explosive behaviors, okay? So these are the lift factors of a meltdown, or the lift factors of an episode. You wanna measure the length, the intensity, the frequency, and the triggers. The length, intensity, frequency, and triggers, okay? So what do I mean by that? What I mean is the length is how long does the explosive episode last? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 3 hours? You know, my son used to have 4 or 5 hour meltdowns on average. I think the longest one, it was a 12-hour rage. It was horrifying. And it involved a whole bunch of people that were on my support team at the time, and not one of them had good advice for me. They all were just in. One of them told me I had to be more firm. That's why we ended up calling the ambulance and the police, because I tried to be firm and it wasn't working. And she's like, I'll show you how to do it. And she's like screaming from the top of the stairs, call 911. He's trying to break the banister off of the stairs. So it didn't work for her either. So then she finally realized that what I was telling her, it wasn't me just being a wimpy mom. I wasn't just like too weak to be firm and to set limits. This kid was not going to comply, period. It wasn't working what I was being told. Anyway, so the intensity, so that was a really intense rage that we had. That was like a level 9, level 10. I know some systems use like 1, 2, 3, 4 system. I use levels 1 through 10, which is really mild irritability, all the way up to dangerous, life-threatening behavior that you need to call somebody to come help you, okay? So you need to look at that. Like if it's just a mildly irritable, mouthy child or something, you know, you can handle that as long as you're doing your self-care and taking good care of yourself. But if it's really dangerous, you're going to have a really strong safety plan and a stronger support team as well, okay? Look at the frequency. How often is it happening? So our rages, when my son first came home, it was probably just about every day, every other day, there was something. I mean, we rarely went 2 or 3 days without something explosive happening. But over time, I was able to measure the lift factors, and I noticed, okay, so he used to have 4 or 5 hour meltdown. Now they're only about 2 hours, 1 or 2 hours, and they're only about once every week or so, or once every 2 weeks or so. And then the intensity is getting less. So it's not 911 level, it's just irritability level sometimes. So what's great about using the lift factors is it's not an all or nothing, right? You know he's gonna continue or she's gonna continue to have those episodes, but you're measuring the intensity, the frequency, the length to see if things are getting better. And it takes us back to those spiraling stages of growth. So you're going to have an episode and then you're going to get compassion. You're going to have an episode and then you're going to get calm, and have an episode and get calm. And as you go through that spiraling stages of growth, suddenly you're starting to go up to the next level where you can start to communicate. You can start to have collaboration. You start to talk to your child. You start to have conversations that are, working together as a team, because the child starts feeling safer, and it's reducing that stress response that they're having. And then the triggers, like figuring out what's going on beneath the surface. This is a big part of knowing how to stop the episodes, is what's starting them in the first place. What's the trigger? Why is the child so freaked out about having the lights off at night? Or why is the child, the smell of chicken was a trigger for my son. It was a strange one. I couldn't figure it out for a really long time, but there were certain smells that were really reminiscent of the orphanage for him, and it would make him really scared. And I didn't know what it was, but I finally realized this is a trigger. He's frightened because of the smell of the chicken. Nothing that I was doing. It was just a memory. It was a trauma memory that he had. And then when I realized what the trigger was, it brought me back to my heart of compassion, because that's where it all starts. It starts with the parent having compassion and understanding and really feeling in a heartfelt way, in a heart-strong way, this child's struggling. They're really struggling. They're not doing this on purpose. They're not pushing my buttons. They're just in survival mode, and they're doing everything they can do to try to get through it. It's harder for them than it is for us, even though it seems like, they enjoy it. Even if they're laughing, really it's not enjoyable to them. They don't want to be the bad kid. Ross Green always says kids do well when they can. And kids want to do well, but sometimes they can't. It's not a won't, it's a can't. Okay? All right, so as you're using the Heartstrong model, as you're using empathy and acceptance, radical acceptance, and really, just being there, being a calming presence, you're going to see a reduction in the meltdowns and the explosive episodes. As you track them, then you can celebrate your progress for yourself, right? You say, we're doing better. I'm doing better. I'm being calmer. Things are getting better. It's not perfect, but we're doing better. My child's doing better. And you can tell the child, you know what, you used to, your rages used to be like 3 hours long, and now it's only like 30 minutes. Great job. High five, sweetheart. Good job, right? You can praise them for the progress that they're making. I'm telling you, our kids are craving that kind of affirmation. They're craving. That's my love language, is words of affirmation. If you've read about the love languages, it's really good to read that. I do a whole training on that too, and how to fill our kids' love cups so that we get that really rich connection and they feel good about being around us, right? That's really important too. But when you acknowledge their progress and you see their growth, and that you focus on the progress, not on their perfection, they're going to feel like you see how hard they're working, and they're going to try harder to get better. And once they're on your team, once the two of you are on the same team, it's magic. I'm telling you, it's magical. Things start shifting and changing and improving and getting better and better. But if you're in this tug of war all the time and you're just fighting and fighting and fighting, you aren't going to get anywhere. I tell parents, drop the rope, and teachers, drop the rope. Don't do tug of war, drop the rope. Don't even get into the battle. It's not worth it. Okay? All right, so moving on quickly. We only have a few more minutes, so we got to go. So identify the underlying causes of what's going on. Okay, I tell a story about basketball and dandelions, as of you who followed me for a while. You can teach me to play basketball by giving me the basketball and telling me try to get it in the hoop, and then give me a sticker or, an ice cream cone every time I get it in the hoop, and give me a timeout every time I don't, or a consequence. Or you can come down on the court and teach me actually how to hold the ball, where to stand, where to put my eye, and coach me through it. We need to be coaches. We need to coach our children through their emotional regulation and not expect them just to know what's right and wrong and how to do that, okay? Dandelions. Dandelions are behaviors, little behaviors that pop up all the time. You can punish them by ripping the behavior off by the head, right? You can pull the dandelion off by the head, but if you don't figure out where it's coming from, the root, what's underneath the soil that you can't see, those dandelions are going to keep coming back, okay? And that's what traditional discipline is all about. It's about punishing and rewarding, cutting the dandelion heads off, and they come back, the behaviors come back. Traditional discipline focuses on punishing and rewarding bad behaviors instead of coaching kids to handle their problems and teaching them to handle their problems effectively. This is not effective, and the compliance is very random and unpredictable. Okay? In the Heartstrong model, we find the underlying cause or the root of the behavior and work with the child as a team to resolve the issue. Once the root's been taken care of, the behavior goes away. You don't have to punish it. You don't have to use any rewards and any consequences at all. And this is a shock because this is not typical parenting. This is not what I did when I was a teacher either. I used lots of rewards and consequences. It's the only thing I knew. But now that I know that it's detrimental to the relationship, I don't use them. And now I hear all the yes buts that are going on in your head if you're new to this. Yes, but what if they get pulled over by a traffic, cop in the future? Yeah, but they're not adults yet. They're still children. They're learning these skills. So we'll get to adult behavior when they're adults. We're gonna move up the stages of growth and get them there too. Okay. So here are what I've identified as the 4 roots of all behaviors. Okay, these are the roots. These are the reasons. Ross Greene talks about the first 2. He talks about lagging skills and unsolved problems. The other 2 are related to trauma, and they are unmet needs and limiting beliefs. So how do we resolve those behaviors instead of punishing the behaviors? We teach the skills. We solve the problems together collaboratively with the child. We meet their needs. We're not spoiling them when we're meeting their needs, and we change their beliefs. That's the optimistic narratives of growth. That's when you say, wow, you used to do this, but look how well you're doing. You're doing better and better. And they start to get that feeling, I'm doing better and better. Mom has noticed I'm doing better. I'm going to try even harder. I'm going to do even better, right? Key 5, we're going fast. This is a whirlwind. Like I said, I'll send you the notes and I'll send you the recording so you can look at this again later, let it sink in a little bit. But key 5 is to prioritize your own growth and healing. Do you remember the spiraling stages of growth? That's about the child, but it's also about you. We can't do this work unless we ourselves are also growing and healing, starting with self-compassion, connection to our own hearts, connection to our purpose in life, our spiritual principles that are important to us, relationship with ourself, first of all, and a connection to who we are and why we're here. We have to start with that. Otherwise, we're just going through our day. It's just in chaos all day, right? So these are what I call trite but true sayings, right? They're trite. We hear them all the time like, yeah, but they're really true. So you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't travel anywhere without stopping to fill up your gas tank. And you need to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help anybody else. So let's talk about adult self-care. It's not a luxury. It's not something you save up for. Someday when I get a minute, I'm going to do some self-care. You are going to fall flat. You wouldn't say that about your car. Well, I just don't have time. I'm going to be driving a lot this week. I've got lots of errands and I barely have any gas left, but I just don't have time to go get gas, so I'm not going to go get gas. You wouldn't say that. You're going to run out of gas and be on the side of the road, right? You're going to make the time to go get the gas. Just in the same way you have to make the time for self-care. And I know this is hard and I hate it when people preach to me about this because I'm probably the worst one at this. But I have to do it. Like I have to make it a priority. It's also includes self-compassion, and it's not the same for everyone. What gives you energy and joy and peace and fulfillment is not what's going to give me energy and joy and peace and fulfillment. So this is something we go into detail in my programs, but you need to create your own self-care plan and then follow it every day. Okay? All right, so let's review the 5 steps, and then we're going to talk about, if you want to go deeper into this, how you can do that, okay? So the 5 keys to end explosive episodes are, first of all, tame that trauma dragon. Get that amygdala stopping and get the executive function, the flipped lid, get it all connected so that it's not firing off all the time. Implement the 4 essentials: self-care, safety plan, strategies, and the support plan. Measure and track the lift factors. That's length, intensity, frequency, and triggers for the meltdowns. Identify underlying causes for the behaviors. Remember, they're always going to be about, let's see, I've rattled off the other ones really fast, but let me remember. So unsolved problems, lagging skills, unmet needs, and limiting beliefs are going to be the causes for behaviors. Figure out what those are and then work to resolve those rather than the behaviors. And then prioritize your own growth and healing. Super, super, super duper important, okay? So remember we talked about the 4 essentials. We talked about safety plan, self-care strategies, and support. Some of you are trying to do this all by yourself. You may have a partner who's supportive, but you may not. And if you do not, and you need more support and you want more help with how to do all of this, because it's a lot, there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's really a sort of a strategic, like it sounds good in theory, but then when it gets into the trenches, you really need some help putting this together. So I've got you covered. I have a plan for you. I want to invite you right now. I'm very excited about this. This is the first time I've offered this program the way I'm going to offer it this year. So drum roll, please. I'm very excited. I'm inviting you to the brand new EEK 2020 EEK. I don't know if you saw that ukulele teachers just screaming because 2020 is EEK, right? That's really all we can say about 2020. But EEK is also an acronym. EEK stands for Explosive Episode Elimination Kit. On Saturday, November 7th, you are invited to join me from 12 to 5 Eastern time. I hope it's not a bad time for you in your time zone. If it is, you can watch some of it on recording. You know, I'm going to have recordings for all, I always do that for all my trainings. But I would love for you to be there live, because what we're going to do is we're going to do a deep dive into all 5 of these keys, and we're going to focus on you and exactly what you need for your child or your students to get rid of their explosive episodes forever. Gone, completely gone. Okay? If you implement these strategies, you implement this system, you're going to eliminate them. And you're going to feel better too, because you're going to have your own growth and healing. Okay? So, it's a fall preview to our Heartstrong Academy. Heartstrong Academy, I run that 3 times a year. We've already started a new cohort of that, so it's too late to get into that program. I will open that up again in a few months, so if you would like to do the 3-month program, that's going to be opening soon. This is more like a little taster, it's just a little, just enough to get you like, okay, I'm on the right track. I know what I need to do, and you'll understand how the Heartstrong system works, okay? So here's what you're going to get if you decide to join us. It's going to be a 1-day intensive workshop for parents and teachers of children with explosive behaviors. It's going to be all day on Saturday, November 7th from 12 to 5. Like I said, it's better if you can come live, but we will have recordings if you can't be there the whole day. We're going to have plenty of breaks and things too. So if you're taking care of children at the same time, there's not a problem if you have to leave to go do something, give somebody some food or let the dog out or whatever you need to do, okay? We're going to deep dive into those 5 topics that we covered today, and you're going to identify for your own children how to implement these exact 5 keys, okay? This is not going to be a sit and get. So today was a sit and get, right? We didn't really have a lot of interaction. I just kind of went through all 5 of these keys really fast. This is going to be highly interactive and hands-on. Think sticky notes, markers, charts, drawings, specific plans. You're going to be writing plans and creating ideas and being creative to get you on your own unique path to eliminating explosive episodes. Okay, it's going to be fun. Make it fun, because it's November 7th and like we're right before the holidays, right after the election. We need something to feel like a team, right? Working together to solve this. So these are the 5 things you're going to get as part of the workshop. This is jam-packed with excellent content. This is like the most important bare bones of everything that I teach, okay? You're going to get Tame the Trauma Dragon training, which is training for parents or teachers on exactly what to do during an explosive episode, because they are going to happen, but you'll know what are the steps to do to eliminate them, but what do you do when you're in one, okay? Just keep yourself calm, keep the child calm. The 4 essentials, we're going to create a plan based on the 4 essentials, just specifically for you around those 4 things to jumpstart your growth and healing. You're going to really analyze your own child's lift factors and what's going on. Just really analyze that and figure out, okay, how far have we come? Where's the growth happening? You're going to learn how to identify causes of behaviors and really look beyond that behavior. That's the name of a really good book, by the way. Grab that book. It's by Mona Delahook. It's called Beyond Behaviors. Really good book. Anyway, we're going to look beyond behaviors. We're going to look beneath the surface to see what's going on beneath the surface and how can we pull that root out so that we don't have dandelions popping up anymore. And we're going to create your very own, lovingly create your own beautiful self-care plan that's not just about going like once every 3 months to get your hair cut. It's going to be about a daily practice that's going to make you feel good. It's not about you have to do it because you should do it. It's going to be you want to do it because it brings you joy and peace and energy, okay? Because everybody's different. So you need your own plan. So we're going to do that. We're going to create all of that during this workshop. Does that sound like fun? I think it sounds like fun. I'm really excited about it. Okay, here's what some other people are saying. You might be thinking, okay, so who else has been through this? Who is this Sandy Lerman woman? Can I really trust this person to help me? Well, this is what one parent, she just posted this. If you're in my Heartstrong parenting group, this was just posted literally 2 days ago. I was so thrilled to hear this because this kiddo was struggling. Anyway, one of the moms, Miriam, said this. She said, I became scared of my daughter, who was now bigger than me, and we began to look for residential treatment as we felt we couldn't help her anymore. But Sandy Lerman kept telling me to give my daughter what she needed. And in this case, it had to do with candy. Long story, but she needed to give her what she needed so that we could reduce that fight, flight, or freeze. If someone would have told me that my child diagnosed with RAD, who screamed and yelled and destroyed things for hours on end, would be attending school with neurotypical kids a year later, I would never have believed it. I know we will always have struggles, but my daughter is now able to communicate with me so I can help her. I just want to let others know that there is hope, even for those who are diagnosed and experts seem to think need hospitalization or residential treatment. One doctor told us that she would just end up homeless, that we couldn't support her and her problems forever. Believe in your child and believe in the power of healing. I love that so much. It makes me cry when I think, because this mom, they were struggling. And I worked with them, and they came so far, and she was so committed to this model, and her child knew that she was committed to her. And that's the key. It's the compassion that she had for her child. At first she was fighting, they were fighting every day, but she found that compassion and she was able to implement these strategies, and now they're able to solve problems together. And that's the key. So what to expect when you come to this training. It'll be a Zoom training with other parents and teachers who have children who are struggling with episodes in their classroom or at home. Interactive training activities, bring some markers, paper, glitter, whatever makes you happy, makes you feel creative and fun. There will be 5 sessions. We're going to do all 5 of those things that we talked about today in an intensive session with a time for you to work on your own plan, and then we'll have breaks scheduled throughout the day. Okay, we might listen to some music, maybe you can bring pizza, whatever. We'll make it a fun atmosphere. So the investment for the program, I did a similar program to this. Some of you may remember a couple of years ago I was doing a program that was about a 5-hour program, and it lasted over a weekend. And then I did another program. It was a 5-week program where we met every week. So typically that program was about $500. And I thought about what price do I want to set for this program. I thought it's been 2020. It's been like the worst year for a lot of people. It's been really rough. So I wanted to do something special for you to take care of the eek in your brain and the eek in your wallet so that you could come to the eek workshop on November 7th. This pandemic has caused a lot of extra trauma. Lots of kids are struggling with their schoolwork. You've got some financial strain, things are happening, social distancing, all school changes, all that. So I thought about maybe making it half of the price would be reasonable, about 50% reduction, making it $250. But I realize that some of you just aren't going to be able to even handle that much. So I'm doing something special just for this time because I want to get this information into as many people's hands as possible. For this workshop, November 7th, the investment for the program is only going to be $75. So that's for the whole program, just one payment of $75 for the entire workshop and all the materials and everything we're going to go over. Okay. So how do you join? All you need to do is go to heartstronginternational.com, heartstronginternational.com. That's my website. Up at the top on the very first page, you'll see this little picture that says Explosive Episode Elimination Kit. Find the EEK, find where it says that, click on that. It'll take you to a page that describes the program and what you're going to learn. And then there's just a little button on there you click and you can pay the $75, and you'll get a little email that says thank you. And then I will, once everybody's signed up, a few days before we do the workshop, I'll send you the information about how to access the Zoom room and what else you'll need to know. Okay, very simple and easy to join. Another parent who's worked with me in the past, here's something that she said about working with me. She said, I was having such a hard time with my 7-year-old son. His physical aggression was at an all-time high, and my own self-regulation during his meltdowns was poor. I had been doing connected parenting with him for about 2 years, was familiar with many connected parenting resources, but I had difficulty putting interventions into practice in the heat of the moment. That's what a lot of parents tell me. They know the theory, that just in the heat of the moment that they have a hard time. Sandy helped me put a safety plan into place and offered many suggestions for specific scenarios. Working with her was a great investment. Okay. And Sunny worked with me for several years, and they're doing fantastic. So I love my parents that I work with. I love their kids. I feel like your kids are kind of like my kids, but you're just spread out all over the globe. So I just enjoy hearing these stories, these great stories. Okay, so I wanted to offer you something special. Like I said, the holidays are coming and it's getting cold outside and everybody's been stuck with all the changes and all the craziness of 2020. So I'm going to offer a fast action bonus. Okay, so if you you can do this right now if you want to listen to me while you're signing up for the program. The first 10 people who sign up, I'm going to just take those first 10 people and put their names in a hat and shake it up and shuffle it around and pull out one lucky winner is going to get a 1-hour individual coaching session with me where we can go over any of these 5 things that you're still struggling with. Then we'll do a deep dive on the phone or on Zoom together, right? So that's a special thing just for the first 10 of you who sign up are going to be put in that raffle. Not all of you will win the prize, but you'll have a better chance of getting it if you sign up now. Okay. If you happen to be listening to the recording, don't panic because a lot of people tend to wait to the last minute. So you still might be one of the first 10 people that signs up. So go ahead and do that. Okay. So you need to make a decision right now. Are you going to use what you learned today? You could do that. You could use everything you learned today and keep working on your own to reduce the episodes and just create your safety plan, create your strategies, do all that. That's perfectly fine. You're welcome to do that. I hope this has been valuable, and I'm sure you may have learned something that you can glean from the workshop today. Are you going to listen to advice from people who don't understand trauma and who are just telling you to punish your child and set firmer limits and it's not working and things are getting worse? Or are you going to join us? Join us on November 7th so that you can really do a deep dive and get this handled, get it all figured out so that you can relax. You have a plan and you know what to do to reduce those meltdowns and get rid of them. Okay? I hope that you'll choose number 3. I hope that you'll join us on November 7th. Remember to sign up. All you need to do is go to heartstronginternational.com. You can do that right now. Look for EEK up at the top of the front page. Click on the photo, and that's going to take you to a program page, and you can sign up there. Please do register early. Don't wait until the last minute. The doors will close the day before we do the workshop, so you only have until that Friday, November 6th. That's only, it's just a week and a half away. So it's not very long to prepare for that. So if you jump in right now, you might be one of the first 10 people that sign up, and then you'll be in the raffle. So that's always good too. Okay, so if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. Again, heartstronginternational.com. Write that down so you don't forget it, heartstronginternational.com. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to look at the chat to see if there are any questions at all. And I'll spend some time answering questions now. So just type your questions in the chat and I'll answer them in the order that they come in. You guys have been a great audience. I haven't been able to watch the chat because I was going through so quickly the slides. So okay, so yeah, one of the questions was how would you word those invitations? Okay, so yeah, great question. So invitations. So I talked about giving an invitation rather than making demands with your child. So here's how I did that for years. What's fun is that now I don't have to always give invitations. I can just tell my son, please do this, and he'll do it. Like, we don't have to have that. I don't have to be really careful to not set him off on an explosive episode anymore. But in the early years, he has there's a term that's kind of more popular in the UK and in Australia and New Zealand right now. It's called pathological demand avoidance. And I think a lot of our kids with trauma, lots of kids with autism, autistic kids, have what's called PDA, or pathological demand avoidance, where when you say, sweetheart, take your plate and put it over on the counter, what they hear is, you are in danger, I'm controlling you. And they immediately do this knee-jerk response of, I can't do that because I'm going to die if I comply with that demand. And it's not defiance. It looks like defiance. It looks super defiant. It looks super oppositional. It's just survival. So what I figured out pretty quickly was that if I invited my son to do things, we had about early on, we had about a 1 in 10 chance of him saying yes. But at least I didn't have to worry about him defying me because I hadn't made a demand, and so he wasn't defying me, right? So I dropped the rope. We didn't have the battle. So here's what it sounds like. Sweetie, I'm going to clean these dishes here in the sink. Would you like to help me by bringing some of those over here? Would you like to do that for me? Would you like to bring your dishes over? And then if he says, no, I don't want to do that, then I immediately would say, okay, that's fine. You don't have to. I just wanted to know if you'd like to help. But you don't have to. I can see that you're a little bit tired right now. So I'm going to let you just rest, and mom will take care of it. You can maybe help me next time. It's okay. Let him off the hook, right? Now, it sounds like you're coddling to this behavior. It sounds like you're letting them manipulate their way out of doing things. No, you've got a child who's at the lowest stage of growth and healing. It's not a won't, it's a can't. They can't allow you to control them yet, right? And you don't want to control them anyway. You want them to do the thing willingly, right? But they're not ready to meet the demand immediately. Their brain is processing it and trying to figure out if it's a threat because they don't want to lose the control. So you just say, sweetie, would you like to take this garbage out for me? Sweetie, would you like to clean your room now? I can come help you. I could come help you clean your room. Would you like to help me do that? Always give them the out. Always help them so that they don't lose face. Then they say no, and you say, okay, sure, no problem, not a problem. I'll take care of it. I'll clean it this time. You can maybe help me next time. It's okay. And let them off the hook. What happens is you've reduced the stress, you've reduced the fear, and then the next, you do that 3, 4, 8, 20 times. On the 25th time, or on the 50th time, on the 100th time for some kids, everybody's different. You're gonna say, sweetie, would you like to help me? I'm cleaning out the kitchen over here. Would you like to come help me? They'll say, okay. And you say, great, thank you so much. You don't make a big deal. You just say, sure, here, would you like to dry? I'm gonna wash these. Would you like to dry them for me? And you just make it very neutral. And then they dry them and put them away. And then every once in a while, about 50% of the time, they're gonna start to comply with things like that. But you're inviting them, so they have an out. They always have an exit door if they're feeling too much stress to do it. And then over time, you can measure that. You can measure the lift factors of a demand avoidance too. They start to comply. They start to be cooperative. They start to help out. And then you can have what I call this an optimistic narrative of growth conversation. You say, sweetheart, do you remember, a few months ago, I used to ask you, would you help me? And you wouldn't help, but you've been helping me a lot lately. I've noticed that you're really being so helpful. It makes me feel so good when you do that. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm so appreciative of that. Does it feel good to help, Mom? Yeah, you're really getting better and better at that. Thank you so much. And now you're noticing the growth. You're focusing on the growth. You're not focusing on the half of the time that they said no. You're focusing on the 1 or 2 times that they said yes. And then that starts to grow and grow and grow and grow until finally they do it most of the time and they don't feel threatened by it. And now I just say to my son, hey, could you take the garbage out? And he'll say, sure, and he'll take it out. It's not a big deal because years ago it was a big deal because he felt threatened by the demand. Does that help? Other questions? Looking at the chat to see if there's anything else. This is a beautiful commentary on your work. Thank you for sharing it and thanks for presenting. You're welcome. Somebody else said she had to go. Yeah, so if you have additional questions, you're welcome to come on over into my groups. I have 2 groups, Heart Strong Parenting and Heart Strong Teaching. If you're a teacher, or educator, counselor, or social worker, come over to Heart Strong Teaching. If you're a parent, come into Heart Strong Parenting. If you're both, come over to both. We can have a little dialogue in there. I hope to see you all at the EEC 2020 workshop on November 7th. All right, take care, everybody. Have a great evening, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.